Hey everyone, it's Jen with Spirited Saturdays. You'll have to forgive my the sound right now is a little weird. Like it's like fuzzy and staticky, so I'm going to try to, I'm determined to work through that. We'll see how it goes. I hope it doesn't mess things up. So, um anyway, this week's topic is so important. It's so important. It's about the focus of recovery versus the focus on sickness. And it was inspired by Carolyn Costin. So thank you, Carolyn. Um, yeah, we focus a lot on, and I guess in our society, we focus a lot on the sickness, being in the eating disorder, being entrenched in it. And I feel like we need to focus more about what it is like, basically the experience of recovery, the whys, the hows, the motivation, the benefits of recovery. So, yeah, I'm just going to talk about that I have so much to say about it, and I hope it helps people of varying levels of stages eating disorder, and even people who don't have eating disorders. There are misconceptions out there, so I hope this helps to shed some light on that. So first of all, why might we be inclined to talk about our eating disordered past or gravitate toward stories that focus, so much on the nitty-gritty of eating disorders, often under the guise of not wanting to bullshit or, to tell it like it is. This can all get really misconstrued because there is often an air of glorification and not enough focus on how or why this person recovered or is recovering. It's easy to glorify it when we see our eating disorders in a positive light. We might see them as an accomplishment or known them to be a friend or partner. They might have made us feel special, and so it might have felt like an identity, so it makes sense that we would reflect on who we feel we used to be, reminisce, romanticize, and all that kind of stuff. In reality, of course, the eating disorder was not a partner, really. It was not a friend, and it was not an inherent part of who we really are. Sometimes it's hard to remember the beginning of recovery. That might interfere with someone's ability to recall the healthy hows and whys. It can be negative, the beginning, it can be blurry. Like you're not fully formed yet, and you're like a baby sprung into new life. So, it can be traumatic, involve painful interactions. And so, whether you remember or not, it might still be tempting to not want to think about it later. For me, the eating disorder replaced a natural progression of relationships in its stunted growth. It replaced what should have been healthy maturation. So it was my default place of recall for a long time. Thinking about it in this way comes from a place of loss. It symbolizes what I lost during the time I chose it over everything else. Talking about it in that reminiscing kind of a way is an attempt to get back what I lost. But it can't be gotten back, and it's a need to recapture a past that can't be recaptured, but it can be learned from and grown from. And so, if you don't make a conscious attempt to change that link to your eating disorder, it runs the risk of always lingering. Needing that false sense of fulfillment, needing to stay attached to that time. It's dangerous because you're validating its importance. You're validating the importance of being sick. You're validating that your sickness was the piece of your recovery that warrants the bulk of your attention. Staying focused there can mean that you're scared of moving forward or being in the present. So you might be reinforcing this fear when you choose to sink back there. It's so important to acknowledge your past, of course, but even more important to acknowledge it with the best intentions. I think a healthy way to acknowledge it is to do so without devaluing the present. Acknowledge it in an attempt to connect it to the present and demonstrate a forward motion. Slip-ups can be acknowledged to emphasize the fact that they can end and that you can come out stronger. Acknowledgement of the past doesn't have to mean that you're paralyzed in it. It's not a frozen frame. It's a moving video. And in acknowledging the past, you're drawing a point. You're concluding that in spite of this or because of this, I am who I am today. I'm further along on the road to recovery, or I am recovered. Eating disorders are not natural, and yet when we talk of our experience with them, it feels often like we're talking about an old friend, or it could feel that way, or a natural part of ourselves, or a default method, which we came to know as naturally as we know breathing. But eating disorders are so distraught. They are not natural. And, that's all the manipulation. They're foreign agents that mess up our body or brain chemistry. They arise in part from terrible feelings or out of control or chaotic pieces of our lives. And they arise in part from histories that we're afraid to talk about. When recalling our past and when trying to put the pieces of our lives together, it's easier to focus on the way we coped with our pasts than it is to talk about the sources of that coping or what made us need to cope in the first place. So, for example, a piece of my past that contributed to my eating disorder was bullying. I've only been able to start talking about that kind of recently, and I still get really strong reactions when I think about it or am reminded of it. But, for that, the eating disorder represented an outlet, something of my own that others couldn't take from me. Now I have to ask myself, why did I not choose to instead to indulge in my passion for music? That would have given me an outlet. It would have given me an identity, something to own. Why did I let the eating disorder numb that passion? So as a part of my recovery, I have worked that passion back into my life. One way I demonstrate talking about recovery is to talk about how I lost and gained that passion. How the passion for music represents wholeness and, not the diluted sense of wholeness that the eating disorder gave me. That was conditional, so I'm working on reinstating my passion for music, reclaiming a self-replenishing wholeness, which on the flip side would be the eating disorders, like self-perpetuating, cyclical spiral downward. And so, yeah, music gives me a sense of going onward and upward. It's propelling me forward. When talking to someone else about recovering from eating disorders, instead of putting the main emphasis on saying you don't want this, like the sickness, it's a good idea to emphasize you do want this recovery. And, this is why you want this, and this is what's so beneficial about it. Include you don't want this, but the moment you make it about how sick you got, like include it because you, like Ariel was saying, you want to identify with the person and you want to be true to yourself. But the moment you make it about how sick you got and how because of that you don't want the person to go through what you went through, that's in part it can be misconstrued because you don't want that person to think like maybe they already have a competitive tendency and they might see this like as an opportunity to one-up you or something. People need to hear about recovery from a solid standpoint. Like they need to be reminded by those who are recovering or recovered that there's life beyond constant fixation on food or weight. And, they need to know that someone, they don't need to know that someone got really bad when they reached a really low weight. They don't need to know that. And you know what, even if you don't tell the person the number or the amount of times you purged or anything like that, you can imply it, and you can imply that it was bad. And so you want to be careful to, watch your expressions, be mindful of how you're dramatizing certain aspects of your illness. It's easy to slip into it got that bad. Then it leaves the person wondering, what is that bad? And then they might say, well, I won't ever get that bad, or, I must be fine since I'm not that bad, or, maybe one day I'll get that bad and count for something. They might be headed there. When talking about the present, it's okay to acknowledge things that you still struggle with, but again, from a recovery standpoint, as though you were projecting forward, linking yourself to the future instead of chaining yourself to the past. If you relapse or lapse, remember that you haven't gotten anything back. You've temporarily lost something. You haven't gotten a resurgence or anything like that, or a new identity. It's the eating disorder is coming up for you as a challenge to face, and a chance has been presented for you to catch something that you didn't catch last time, to gain insight, awareness, motivation, tools, to practice these tools with a new level of consciousness, a new level of conscious effort. And you can do these things, struggle, is a sign of sickness, but you can consider it a source of strength, because that's really what it is. And it, there's a chance for you then to, if you struggle, to look forward into the future, to see and visualize a a future you that is doing what you're supposed to be doing, and see that there's no place for the eating disorder in that. So yeah, you just remember that the message for you and the person that you're speaking with, if they are looking to you for support, is that you're capable of taking a relapse and turning it into an enhanced recovery. So you know what, I can't be on here and honestly say that I don't still struggle, but my struggles, I struggle with a reference point of wanting to stop struggling and wanting to replace my struggles with meaningful things. I'm proud to say that I don't struggle a fraction of how much I used to, but I'm acknowledging that I have more work to do. I understand that full recovery is entirely possible, and I can see myself getting there. So, my current struggle is overeating and occasional binging. I really can't make these videos and not admit to that, but I also want to say that I'm not looking for an eating disorder solution to these problems. I don't try to compensate for binging or overeating in any way, and my eventual goal is to just be able to not only get rid of the behavior, but the urge for the most part, really, or not internalize the urge. I have a lot of people, a great support system to remind me every day that this is possible, and they're my platform for strength and for growth, and so I feel very grateful in that regard. So I am taking this struggle and I'm trying to use it to propel myself forward. Ask yourself, I would say, ask yourself some of the following questions. Who are you? What are you proud of? What do you love about yourself that could drive your recovery forward? For example, my recovery so far has been a combination of acceptance, change, questioning, challenging, assessing pitfalls, honesty, self-expression, community, therapy, all of that. Remember that whatever your eating disorder was or is, you can dignify your struggle by remembering it as the pain that fueled it and how you arose and continue to arise from that pain every day. If you have a faith, remember that every time you align yourself with your symptoms, your soul's purpose is becoming sidetracked. That's the last thing your soul wants for you. And so it'll keep reminding you, though. So listen. Lastly, what I want to say is just be that person. And by that I mean be the person who doesn't judge, who is progressive. Imagine that a loved one has an eating disorder, and be that person. Represent the state of self-worth that you would wish so badly for them. You don't want anyone you love thinking of their value with strings attached or with conditions or judgments. So be that example of recovery that you would want them to become in their own way, of course. Remember that eating disorders are in part an attempt to defy our basic human needs. So by acknowledging the very human pain that underlies an eating disorder, and by acknowledging and really focusing on how you've moved past that pain, you are showing the extent of your bravery, and you are giving others hope that they can work through their pain as well. So I hope that you were able to get something from this video, and just keep putting the future in, keep not attaching, just keep connecting yourself to what you're utilizing now for your recovery, how that can help you for your future. And just keep remembering that the past it's part of what cultivated your growth. It can be used for good, and you don't have to be stuck there. You don't only have to remember the past. You don't only have to remember how you got sick or why you got sick. You can just as well remember how and why you got better, and really, really grow from that. I firmly believe that. I know I said I'm not fully recovered, but I absolutely believe it's a possibility, and so I'm staying strong, and I hope that you do too. Thank you. Take care. Have a good week.